Hey gang, welcome back to another edition of Council Corner. Today we're going to take a look at how bad decisions over time can create a level of corruption in our world. So strap yourself in and remember to hit the like and the subscribe button so you can keep up to speed on everything that is talk about Martin. All right, let's go. Imagine, if you will, a straight line that's directly in front of you. It stretches from your left to your right, and in the center of that line there's a framed area. In that frame, you can see the center point on that line, as well as a bit to the left and the right of center. Now, imagine that the line you're looking at represents how your day is going. At the furthest point of one end, for discussion's sake, let's say that at the left end of the line there is darkness and despair, and then at the opposing end of the line there's light and hope. In the frame, we see the place that is in between both the worst of places and the very best. So when we move it in a direction, the frame acts as our window on how our day is going. If we focus on the despair end of the line, then we will see despair. If focused on the hope end of the line, we see hopeful outcomes and our day will get better, okay? Generally, we tend to land as a human someplace in the middle most of the time. Like any other window, we're able to see what's on the other side of it. So if we allow our window to be moved in a direction to either side of center, even in the slightest, we move our frame of reference, our window. Then we begin to see the world through a perspective of that window. As a rule, when we use the window as a lens or as a perspective to view that line of reference like governance, leadership, management, politics, ethics, morals, faith, and so on, we can do so with greater success when we know the scale, simply because when we know what the worst end of the scale is, we're able to view the outcomes of that end and avoid them. This gives us an opportunity to move our window along the line to a place that's better suited to providing reward instead of penalties or negative outcomes. As you adjust these windows across the many referential lines of life and bring them to bear on a place that's individually suited to your self-honesty, you begin to build your own reality. This is just the way it works. Allowing the window to move in a direction of what we know to be amoral, even in the slightest, still moves the window. It moves it in a direction of darkness, negativity, or whatever desperate label you want to give it. If you're, let's say, a village manager, and you openly break the law, even if it's just a little at a time, you're still moving the window towards lawlessness. In doing so, you are limiting the view of lawful outcomes. Do this enough, and as a top manager, your subordinates start to view things through that same window of your leadership. See, it becomes okay to turn your head here or overlook the tedious and mundane. Whether it's right to do or not, this has already begun, though, to manifest in the culture, managed by the current village manager in Indiantown, Howard Brown. At the last regularly scheduled village council meeting, just this sort of occurrence took place, and we're going to share it with you. It's one of many, but here are Howard's own words. Go ahead, Mr. Producer. Play that clip.
I just know that we have a small office, and if someone uh, ends up with COVID-19, then
You
we
can take
can't run
it
it.
out, right?
There are instances of this happening right here in Indiantown, and I know that if, like for example, our front counter, I have mandated that our staff wear face masks in the building, in their workstations. That runs afoul of the governor's executive order, but we have to operate here a village, and in order for us to do that, I can control our employees, and that's what I've done. Now, if the council doesn't want me to do that, we can do that, but I think that is the only way that we can operate right now.
If you think for a minute that the rest of the staff has not noticed these types of overt slides to the side of breaking the rules because the ends justify the means attitude, well, you're sorely mistaken. We've documented evidence of that fact, and one such case involves some less than detail-oriented procedural laws that have been violated by code enforcement. And when you're talking about the potential of a homeowner having a lien placed upon their home that is reprehensibly excessive, It makes a difference. We have another documented event that took place by a senior director when they wrote scripts for the PZA board to read in complete favor of one side over the other, the developer versus the people, thus not allowing the board to exercise its lawful choices towards their will and not the rulemaker's will of the outcome. The window shifted there. There is example after example of this fact over time in the behavior of senior leadership within the village. One small step to one side or the other eliminates an equal view of the other side. When we move too far towards the bad end of the line, well, then our window shifts closer and our actions reflect the boundary we frame our reality in. So over time, you end up in a place like Opelika, Pahokee, Belle Glades, corrupt and demoralizing with negative outcomes for all involved. As we move closer to the other end of the scale, it's not humanly possible to maintain an achievable level of perfect standard for extended periods. To do so would require every other referential line in our life be brought into similar proximity of scale to be able to maintain the high degree of perfection represented by the far end of the line's scale. Some come closer to others at maintaining the light of scale versus the darkness of scale. Let's look at it this way. We can't have portions of our life that conflict with each other. You know, it's tough to do. Many tend to allow the dominant window of negative to shadow or draw the blinds on the value and principle-based windows we have open. It's far easier to drift towards the darkness than it is to the light. You see, the darkness requires nothing of you except the degeneration of your soul. The light requires education, growth, and a determinal effort towards the same. It's not easy. It takes energy. There's not one of us that have all of our windows in the light 100% of the time. It's just not possible, especially when you're using learning as a line of reference. If one's to learn from living, then we have opportunity to move in a better suited environment that is closer to the light and filling the room in every corner. When you watch for those shifts now over time, you allow to nudge your window towards the darkness. Be aware of them. Why? Well, they'll move your window in the same direction otherwise, towards the darkness. Sort of like life lesson taught to me by my father. He taught me many years ago that the people you associate with in your life circle will have influence on your perspective. Know who you're standing alongside. If you surround yourself with people that are of a negative ilk, you too will soon become the same. If you associate with those that are graciously achieving and working to do no harm and bring light, then you too will reap the rewards it brings. Most humans find solace in the center of the overall reference line of life. It balances. How? Well, if your unawareness of window shifts take place gradually and over a long period of time, you're less likely to see it occurring. Unless you're paying attention to those reference lines that really affect the parts of life bigger than you, they'll have full control over you. What are your endpoints on these lines of reference? And where do you see your window on these lines? On freedom, liberty, governance, economics, and faith. These are things that are larger than us, and not focusing on them is really self-negligent. If you don't focus on the nudges that shift over time, then you're allowing somebody or something else to move the window for you. That's really a big leap for a soul to take. So, know who you're standing with. And remember, the longer you leave the light from coming through your window, the darker your room will become. The longer you leave the window shifters to remain in a place that can move the window in a direction that's opposite to American values, standards, and principles, sooner your windows will be moved towards the darkness. It starts with you.